Hello there, we're your commentary team for this afternoon's Trial 8s. I'm Martin Cross.
Hello, hi, I'm Phelan Hill.
Phelan, it's exciting to be down here. We just saw Cambridge lightweight Trial 8s going by. There's a real buzz down on the Tideway this afternoon.
Oh, I think so. You know, it's a bit of a combination. It's pre-Christmas festivities. I think also for the crews now, they've had a bit of time racing for Fours Head in fours. And now all of a sudden, you know, this is a transition to the 8s. This is the first sort of like big milestone in their journey towards the boat race.
Now, we were talking earlier and you mentioned just how significant this was for the coxes of both the men's and women's crews from Oxford in terms of their selection. Just talk us through what you meant by that.
Yeah, no, certainly. I think from my perspective, one, I always think like internal racing is one of the hardest things. I always found it the most stressful when I was competing. But I think for the coxes, this is for them like the one time when they really get to be tested and shown what their abilities are. You think for the rowers, there's a number of individual milestones over the course of the season. The erg test, the seat racing, where they'll get to go and show their abilities. For the cots, this is probably the only time. It's the only time they're going to race the full course. It's the only time they're going to really have that pressure as side by side before selection is made.
I was at the coin toss for the Oxford women just a while ago, and the umpire, Matt Smith, boy, he really went in hard on them. He was basically saying, don't you mess around, because I know all the tricks. I mean, how much pressure is that on the cox?
Well, I think it is really. You know, we just mentioned the fact that, you know, this is their only one opportunity to have a full race down the course. So, you know, if there is a bit of a mess up, if there is a lot of clashing, they have to restart, stop the race. You know, it completely breaks the pattern. So they've got to do it properly today.
And what about the tension in the crews? Because I guess the two women from the Oxford University boat race women's club, Alison Carrington and Zara Helene, they confessed to feeling a little nervous. I guess they're going to feel more nervous on the start. But how nervy is it for the guys?
I think it's really nervy. You know, like I said, I found in my time actually doing internal stuff is actually slightly more like, it feels more pressure. There's more nerves on it. You know, you've got friends who are all of a sudden becoming enemies, and there's always just a little bit more feel of internal pressures on. You know, for me personally, I found something like this much more stressful than actually sort of like competing at the Olympics or something, because it was much more processed when you got to the Olympics and you had a lot of time. Here, there's a lot more things that can go wrong. You are racing against your friends. You know there's the pressure of selection. So there's a lot of things on the line. And actually, you know, you don't get it right now. You've got to go and sort of like sit and dwell on that through the Christmas period before you get back into training in the new year.
Yeah, so we've seen these guys. They've raced on the Tideway in the Fours Head, obviously in the opposite direction. And I guess the Oxford and Cambridge men came out pretty equal. Maybe the Cambridge women shaded it over the Oxford women. But here, this is a big opportunity to go down the championship course, and conditions are fantastic. I mean, what would you think racing today in these conditions?
I think if we just look down the course, conditions are almost perfect. Lovely conditions, flat water, there's not much wind in there, streams looking pretty good. You know, certainly I think if I was out today, I'd certainly be looking, you know, picking Surrey and really looking for a nice course. So.
And just a word, how easy is it for the coaches to pick match crews? Because I know they try and do that on maybe ergo schools or seat racing that they've had. I mean, how good a job can they do of picking these match boats?
I mean, Sean is incredibly experienced when it comes to sort of like, you know, running the programme, managing it. He's seen it over the years. You know, he will have seen already early part of the season, you know, how the athletes are performing. You get quite a good benchmark from what's happened at Fours Head previously. Saying all that, there's always a little bit of art to forming crews. You think you've got something which is matched, and then as soon as it goes out on the water, it's a completely different story. But,
well, why not have a look at the course that these guys are going to row down? You've heard from Phelan and myself. Let's take a look at the course.
It is just over 4 miles of the twisting Thames between Putney and Mortlake, racing upstream but with the flow of the incoming tide. Crews choose either the south bank, the Surrey station, or the north, which is Middlesex. The initial slight advantage is to Middlesex around Fulham's Craven Cottage. After 3.5 or 4 minutes, the mile marker is reached and the landmark of the former Harrods Furniture Depository before Hammersmith Bridge. The majority of crews leading here go on to win, and now the bend favours the Surrey station, a large sweeping turn past halfway into the Strait of Chiswick Reach and past the island Chiswick 8. Quite often into a headwind, this can be exposed in rougher water. A final slight bend to Surrey, and then it turns back to favour the north bank, under Barnes Bridge, into the final 1,000 metres and towards the finish just before Chiswick Bridge.
I'm riding cross with me, Phelan Hill, and you can see there the very cold but light winds of the weather we've got on the course for the 2 trial 8s. Athena v Artemis, the Oxford women, and Beetle versus Wedge, the Oxford men's trial 8s. Tension rising before the women's race is off at 13:25. The boat race sponsored by Gemini, and the associate sponsors Graduate Hotels, Rival Kit, Chapel Down and Hydro, partners with the boat race. Phelan. Phelan, why not just tell us about the course there down at Harrods? It looks like Fulham Reach boat club.
Yeah, that's just around the main Surrey bend there. I think, as we've already talked about just firstly, conditions are looking absolutely perfect there. I don't think you could get a better day for actually racing.
I don't know whether crews would want rough conditions just to practice, or a day like this because they go, well, we're going to get a great row, whatever.
I would today favour having fair conditions. Let's get down the course, do the full race. You know, sort of like second half of the season post-Christmas, when you're going up against those fixtures, you're always going to end up with choppy water then. You're going to get plenty of time to go and practice, but let's go and get a good race today.
So, time to look at our associate sponsors. Let's have a look at Hydro.
Strap on in, take a seat. You feel the river, you feel the beat. Let's grow together, we roll together. Better you, better me. Up and down.
Where are you feeling it? My butt? My glutes?
It's live, it's real, it's human. A beautiful.
Get ready for that shift.
Wherever you been, the journey begins. So roll.
Come on, you got it.
Lovely machine, Hydro, if ever you want to try it. One of the boat race partners. But we are going to move from this view to have a look at the teams for the Oxford women's squad that are racing.
Hopefully we've got some equally matched crews there. I think actually Cotsine was a little bit of a late one actually in terms of selection, but let's go through the crews now, shall we?
So in stroke seat of Athena, the crew on Surrey, we have Maria Nilsson-Scott, medicine graduate from Exeter College. She learnt to row when she came to university. In the 7 seat, Sarah Marshall, again British from the Piers School, learnt to row at Rob Roy Boat Club as a junior. The 6 women, lots of power from the Aussie there, Freya Willis, graduate of the Australian National University in Canberra. And then the crew captain, Alison Carrington, in the 5 seats from St Albans High School. And she joined OUWBC last year. In the 4 seat, the Kiwi, Esther Austin, graduate of Canterbury University and St Anne's College. And there we have the 3 seat, Greta Miller, the American, graduate of Berkeley and Princeton. A lot of experience there. Jen Astley, the Athena 2 woman, another British rower, studying cellular and molecular medicine. And up in the bow seat, Phoebe Mountain. Phoebe is from Merton College. Rose at Merton College Boat Club. Tara Slade is the coxswain. She's British. Just 1 metre 67. College of St. Peter's. That's the crew of Athena, and they'll be on the left of your picture as we look at it on the Surrey bank. Here's the crew from Artemis. Juliet Russell in the stroke seat. She's a Brit, originally from Shrewsbury School, and she's studying biology. So we're going back to the 7 seat. That is the President, Sarah Helene, anchoring the seat that she did in the reserve boat race last year for Osiris. In the 6 seat, Claire Aitken, and she is another Brit. Learnt to row at the beginning of her undergraduate degree at University of Glasgow. Helen Nielsen Scott in the 5 seat, another Brit. Started at the end of her first year once things opened up after COVID. In the 4 seat, Ella Stadler. She's got British and American nationality. And University of College Exeter. Laurel Kay, studying astrophysics, another American. Graduate of Duke University and Yale too. In the 2 seat, Kate Friesen, studying oncology at Christchurch. And up in the bows, riding shotgun for Artemis, Sophie Camy, another American graduate of Dartmouth College. Here, her college is Mansfield at Oxford. Alana Burdes, the cox, she's got British, Irish and Barbadian nationality, would you believe? And she was coxing the Oxford men's 3rd 8 last year, so she switched over to the women's squad. And that are the 2 crews that we will hear or see race over the course this afternoon. Let's see what happened for the coin toss.
Okay, call it in the air. Go.
Heads.
I think that's tails. So, which station would you like?
Sorry, please.
Sorry. And sorry, that's
Athena.
Athena. And your name is?
Alison.
Alison. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well done. Stay warm and we'll see you out there.
So Alison Carrington, Zara Helene, the 2 crew captains of Oxford University Women's Boat Club today. And Alison, we've just had the coin toss. You had no hesitation in choosing Surrey.
No, I mean, we talked about it as a crew and we decided that that would be the station we'd prefer, but we make a plan for both stations, so, I mean, if it'd gone the other way, we'd still be, you know, ready to race.
And was that a tactic? You chose heads, Sarah, and it came up tails. How gutted were you at that result?
I was very nervous at first when I saw tails come up. I thought, oh no, we're going to lose the station we want. But we actually were going to choose Middlesex, so it turned out well in the end. We also made plans for both stations though, so it was going to be fine either way.
Now I've got to ask the both of you, you're obviously together in the squad, but you're racing each other today in 2 rival crews. How nervous are you at this moment, an hour or so before the race?
Well, I've definitely raced with Alison, so I know she's quite the adversary. So I'm a little nervous, but quite excited as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's normal to feel nervous, right? So, yeah, just excited to channel that nervousness into sort of adrenaline energy to get us down the course. So, yeah, feeling good. Ready to race Sarah.
And there's a lot of people around here. The atmosphere is really building up. We've seen all your competitors from the Cambridge crews going out, the Cambridge Lightweight Women's Boat Race. It's a real buzz around the Tideway area here.
Oh, it's just so exciting. I mean, it's just this sort of flavour for what will happen in March. So it's really lovely to see it really busy here and full of sort of boat race energy.
Yeah, it's incredible that it's such a cold day, but still people are turning up to cheer us on and give this great buzz.
What about the conditions today for you guys to race in?
I mean, they look really nice and flat, which is good, but it is also very cold. I think the weather forecast said it might snow at some point, so we'll just take it as it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Now tell us a little bit about how long you've been in these match crews, how much time you've had to train together.
So the crews have been matched, set for just over a week, but we often sort of train in match dates throughout the season, but for just this last week we've been completely matched, isolated training.
And Alison, tell us how your boat's been going.
It's been going really well. It's nice. There's a lot of experience, but from lots of different avenues. So it's nice to bring everyone together and try and sort of consolidate it into one United rowing strokes. It's going well.
And Zara, you're in the 7 seat. I think you were in the 7 seat last year when you raced in Osiris, if memory serves.
Yes, that's very true. I'm back in 7 seat, kind of what I know, I guess, but with a completely different boat. So that's exciting. I think we've got a lot of power in our boat this year, and that's exciting.
And I guess for you, we were talking at the President's Challenge about how important that learning curve was for your squad, and today's another giant step for you guys on that learning curve, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's just great getting more and more experience just every day, every race.
Fantastic. Well, Alison and Zara, good luck this afternoon. We're really looking forward to seeing you race.
Thank you very much.
See those two women in the crews of Athena and Artemis go head to head against each other. We were just saying, Phelan, that there aren't any athletes from the Oxford Blue Boat in either of these crews racing today.
No, I think it's quite surprising actually. I mean, you always expect the transition from a sort of like a post-Olympic year to more, a further year on, and you see quite a high dropout. But actually, not to have any people who have previously actually done the boat race itself is, as in the blue boat, it's actually quite surprising in some ways. So I think you've just seen it there, how the girls were talking about the fact that this is a great opportunity to get some experience, and I think for a lot of the people racing today, this will be their first time down the track in this way, doing like a full race piece side by side. There's a lot you can learn from that bit.
So you can see the record times there, but we're going to take a look at the challenge for the boat race. Just 105 days to go to the boat race ahead of these trial 8s this afternoon. Let's take a look at what happened when the two crews challenge each other.
On behalf of Oxford University Women's Boat Club,
on behalf of Cambridge University Boat Club,
I challenge Cambridge University Boat Club,
Oxford University Boat Club,
to an 8-oared race to be held over the championship course
on Sunday, the 26th of March, 2023.
On behalf of Oxford University Boat Club,
on behalf of Cambridge University Boat Club,
I accept the challenge.
So we're going to be having a look at the two boats as they come down to the start. They're just completing their warm-up at the moment, and of course traditionally, Phelan, the boats go above Putney Bridge. There we can see a look at one of the crews. They've all got their tops on at the moment. I can say that we will be able to tell the difference between the two crews, because Artemis, the crew of Middlesex, are racing in white. Where's that, above Wandsworth Bridge somewhere?
Yeah, that's just by above Wandsworth, along the Wandsworth stretch. I think, for me, this is almost like the most nervy bit. And actually, this stretch of water, before you do any prep, is always the worst stretch of the water. It's really bouncy, it's really lumpy. You're trying to do your warm-up, you get a lot of wash. Normally, your warm-up ends up being actually quite rubbish. You can see actually there's actually quite a lot of swirl in the water. So it's always quite amusing. The fact is that you're about to go off and try and execute the best race you can, and you probably have some of the worst warm-up area to do it, which normally heightens all the nerves as well. So, I think you have to have a lot of cool heads at this point. Normally you end up with a few dodgy starts, and you have to go and calm everyone and say, don't worry about it. We've done the process. It's just the water at this point. Just remember what we need to do. Get ready to execute on that first stroke when we're actually ready to go.
Yeah, and it is so freezing out there. I'm just wondering, if they're taking off layers, just how warm these athletes are going to be. They're keeping their leggings on, or are they? No, not everyone's got their leggings on. Just a little graphic there showing the great boat race, Oxford Stroke. Matt Smith is the umpire for this women's trial 8. He also umpire the women's boat race in March, Phelan.
Yeah, Matt's a very experienced hand, and interesting. You know, you speak about Matt, and I remember actually when Matt went and raced against his brother.
2002 or 1?
I think it was 2001 or 2002.
Yeah.
But interesting now, just talking about sort of like brotherly rivalry, we've actually got some sisterly rivalry in the crews actually today with Helen and Maria Nielsen Scott. So
yeah,
nice to get a bit of like sibling rivalry, I think, within the boats.
Yes, we are assuming they are siblings. They both went to the same school, St John Plessington, and Maria Nielsen Scott is stroke of Athena, the crew on Surrey, and the crew on Middlesex. Helen, Nielsen Scott is in the 5-6, so the engine room of that crew Artemis, which will be on Middlesex. We're still down the course, it's not far from Hammersmith Bridge, looking at the former Harrods Furniture Depository on the right of your picture, and you could see the 8s getting ready, getting their kit, or they hand their splash tops down to the umpire, to the coaches launch, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, little bit me being nerdy here, but I was always really meticulous about this. You think, obviously, particularly on cold days like this, everyone wears quite a lot of kit, and actually just before racing, and when you're about to go and do the race, you don't want to actually take the kit with you. I remember talking to a few crews about this, and we actually weighed one day how much kit we were actually just like storing, and it ended up being about like 20-30 kilos of weight,
massive.
which you just didn't need. And you imagine there as well, it's going to be wet as well. There's a lot of additional weight that you just want to strip off. At this point in time, this is your last test now before Christmas. This is a major milestone, and you want to go out and deliver the best that you can. So you don't want to be carrying like 40 kilos of excess weight that you don't need to. So, strip, dump everything as much as you can.
So the race is looking good for the off time in 13:25, so that's about another 3 minutes from now, and the crews have been told precisely. I think the crew on Surrey needs to hug that centre buttress of Putney Bridge, and the crew on Middlesex needs to come right down in the middle of the river. They were given quite precise instructions by race umpire Matt Smith, which rather incongruously the briefing was taking place in the kitchen of Imperial College Boat Club. I thought he was quite tough on them, actually.
I think though we've seen that more and more over the years. I was actually talking to another old Oxford Blue, and one of the things that we were discussing was the fact that actually in the last sort of like five to 7 years, the races have become a lot cleaner. There's a lot less clashing now. It's much more focused around the rowing. I think previously there have been occasions where maybe coxes have pushed very hard and probably almost too much, which is to sort of like the detriment of the race. And I think as a result of that, we're seeing today now that Matt enforcing his position on the coxes and also reinforcing to the stroke women in both crews. We want a clean race. It's about the actual rowing. There is plenty of room for two boats to be in the stream. You don't need to be like some hero driver who's trying to sort of like dominate and just take it all. I think long are the days where you've seen still one of my favourite races, but Kevin Wyman back in the ancient Cambridge skies, I think he got warned about 200 times for steering. He did win the race then, but I think those days are past. We want a lot less work for the umpires in terms of their calling. Right, I think the crews are now paddling up.
So that's the crew on the left of your picture. It's the Athena crew, Mountain in the bows, Astley, Miller, Austin, Carrington, the crew captain in the 5-seat, Willis, Marshall, Maria Nielsen Scott, stroking, and Cox Tara Slade, they're the crew in the dark blue, and rowing with the white layers, it's Artemis, the crew of Middlesex on the right of your picture right now. That's Cami, Friesen, Kay, Stadler, Helen Nielsen Scott in the 5 seats, Aitken, Helene, Russell and Cox, Alana Burdis.
I don't know what you thought, Martin, but I thought it was quite interesting to hear Sarah talking about the fact that she favoured Middlesex off the start. I mean, looking at the conditions, they're great conditions here. I'm quite surprised that you would want to do that. I would always be wanting to utilise that long Surrey bend, unless you're backing yourself off the start and you think you're going to actually take the advantage then.
But they don't know, do they? Because they've not done any pieces against each
they've
other,
only been together for a week, so it's an interesting one. It might be down to the fact that, you know, we talked about perhaps here not quite as much course experience, and actually, you know, you want to build a bit of confidence by being up early. But no, it's an interesting choice from my perspective.
Two crews are nearly at the start. Of course, unlike the boat race, Phelan, this is a free start, so they're drifting free. They're not held by any stake boat, so there isn't a line up, I think. And you can see the Cox there, Tara Slade's hand up with those Dayglow green gloves. The graduate from St Peter's studying medicine. She is the Cox of Athena, who are on the Surrey station. That's on the left of your picture. And there is another reverse angle of Tara Slade.
Very, very challenging actually in these conditions for both Coxes, just to get alignment, get straight. You're unlike, you know, just being on river water, you're on moving water. It's fast moving water. You're trying to get straight.
And Matt Smith has just given the start. Both hands went down. Alana Burdis' hand went down. Tara Slade's hand went down. And I would say that that is Athena maybe in a slight lead on the Surrey station, and Alana Burdis, the Cox of Artemis, crew in white, she's just moved over, I think, Phelan.
Yeah, no, very, very clear there. Artemis immediately sort of like moving across. I actually think Artemis there got quite a nice start.
Yeah, nice round the back turn, looking at Maria Nielsen's got in the stroke seat. She does look nice and cool, calm round the back turn. See the crews up at their highest rate of striking off the start, just low 40 strokes per minute, but it is Athena, who are maybe a canvas down on the crew on the Middlesex station.
There you go. It's very well. We talked about the fact that, you know, like developing those match days, and you know how well in this case it's, you know, Andy doing the decisions. Looks like he's done a pretty good job there of like finding them.
Yeah, the President's crew on the far side, rowing in the 7-seat, Sarah Helene, that's one back from the stroke, Juliet Russell, the crew on the far side in white. You could see they had just that very slight lead as they came past us here in our commentary position at London Rowing Club down at Putney. And we watch these 8s followed by that trailing armada, and Artemis will want to capitalise on that lead. There we see that big power coming down from Helen Nielsen Scott in the 5 seats. Tall woman, isn't she?
Yeah, look, this is going to be interesting now. This is like quite a critical moment in the race. You've just come off high tempo, high speed start, and now you've moved from the anaerobic to the aerobic, and now we're coming up to the first bend, the Middlesex bend here. Just we're probably about 500 metres or so just into the race, probably a little bit more. And this is your transition into your race pace. This is going to be now how you transition is going to define how your race goes. So really, really important. You're transitioning onto race pace. You're approaching Middlesex, the first bend. I think Artemis here have really done this well. They've got the inside Middlesex bend. I
think both Coxes are well positioned here, and actually I quite like the rhythm which is coming down from Artemis.
Yeah, that's a really nice rhythm, really loose and easy round the back turn. Juliet Russell in the stroke seat, and a lot of backup and length coming from Zara Helin in the 7th seat, and then the power that must be coming down from Claire Aitken, the Brit, in the 6th seat. You can see her blade there, beautifully in time with a stroke woman, and that stern unit is just taking the Artemis crew in white out to a slight lead over Athena as they take the advantage of their bend, but this is very early days.
Yeah, early days. I think it's really good to see both crews very evenly matched. Both crews doing a good job here. I think, you know, if I'm being totally honest, I think, you know, we want Artemis. I think they can go and push a little bit more over, just be a little bit more on that Surrey side. But yeah, no, good start. We should be really thinking now. I think both Coxes very much now just focused, establishing that fast mid-pace rhythm, really just staying strong on the legs and feeding the rhythm.
And you can see the graphic we've got on the bottom right of the screen, the little yellow dot, which is giving you a great idea of where exactly the crews are. You can see that Middlesex bend has just run out, and if anything, Phelan, I think Artemis have moved back. Sorry, Athena, the crew on the left, have moved back on Artemis and now got a slight lead, which is a great move from them, just off the crown of the Middlesex bend. They make that move.
Really, really interesting now. I think, you know, if I'm in the Athena boat now, I think I'd be really happy. You know, we've finished the Middlesex bend. At that point, I think the Middlesex bend's probably worth about a third of a length. And you'll be in the Athena boat and say, look, actually, we're up here. We've nullified their bend, and now we're approaching Surrey, worth probably about 3/4 of a length, and we can just start slowly turning the screws. I think Athena here looks like it's a strong base pace rhythm. You can see them now just like inching out, and this is going to be really critical now in the Artemis. You're starting to get maybe like, you know, it's probably like 2/3, 3/4 of a length down, and you need to make sure that other boat now just doesn't keep inching away. You need to go and nullify that, find your rhythm, and you start inching back. So important to just hold that contact.
That's a crucial part of the race for the crew in white, the Artemis crew. You can see they have lost, what, about 2/3, 3/4 of a length. Brilliant push by Artemis, and that has been masterminded by Maria Nielsen-Scott in the stroke seat. Zara Marshall behind her in the 7th seat, and Freya Willis, the woman powering that boat in 6th. They just look a bit longer off the finishes, the back turn, than that this crew here. A little bit more pushy, a little bit more zappy out the back, feeling.
Yeah, I totally agree, and actually now, you know, Athena, they've probably got, you know, faster base race speed, and they've got the Surrey bend now in their favour. All they need to do now is just be in your rhythm, just keep feeding a rhythm, and that's going to keep inching away now. You can hear Matt doing a little bit of warning, but I think generally it's been a very clean race so far. I think good job from both Coxes there, keeping the race clean, keeping it focused on the actual athletes. Will be interesting now as we start to approach Hammersmith Bridge. We're just coming past Harrods Depository. You know, what response can you do now? You can't just like keep letting them walk away. What response can you make to go and keep the contact, stay with the other crew?
So you can see the yellow marker on our graphic on the bottom right of the screen. Hammersmith Bridge is just about to come up, and the Athena crew are going to shoot Hammersmith Bridge with a clear water lead over the Artemis crew in white, and the cranes there for the buildings just framing the skyline as Athena just head under that second lamppost. Pretty great line from Tara Slade, the Athena Cox. She can do what she likes there, push Artemis out, and they're rowing in those puddles of their opposition now, feeling.
Yeah, no, it starts becoming a challenge now. You've lost the contact. You start sitting in that dirty water just coming underneath your hull. at this point now, we're just coming out of Hammersmith. We're still up against like that Surrey bend. You've really got to think about now just a little bit of a refocus. Can you get to just find sort of like a stronger base pace rhythm in the second half? Whereas there, you know, out front, you can fully see the other crew enjoy seeing the back of their heads.
Yeah, having a great row, aren't they, the Athena crew?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. We were talking earlier, you know, just at that transition point, just coming off the Black Boy, and as we're approaching like Fulham and the Middlesex bend, it's just how you transition. Clearly, there, Athena has done a really great job with the transition to race pace. You can see that actually they're Athena are underrating Artemis, and it's just about very good distance per stroke rowing now.
Yeah, and the technique looks pretty good for this time of year. It's early doors, but coaches Andy Nelder and his assistant James Powell done a great job with these two crews. A few little things they can tidy up, I guess, at the front end of the stroke, maybe, just looking at that Artemis crew, but technique looks pretty decent, I'd say.
Yeah, well, Andy's a very experienced hand. Obviously, he worked with Sean for many, many years, you know, coaching the ISIS boat. You know, he's now, you know, fully in charge of the women's program, and I think you've got to be happy. You know, I think as we mentioned in the interviews, you know, they've only, whilst, you know, they do spend time in eights, they've only had a week together here. So actually getting that cohesion together in the short space of time, you know, it's not easy to do. And actually, you know, I think both crews are doing well. Really, really impressed now actually with how Athena have transitioned, and they're just walking away now. Really great stuff.
Artemis, the stroke rate has dropped just slightly there. They're at 33 strokes a minute. The crew behind, they're in the white undershirts. Athena up there, 33 and a half. Just a little bit more lively. They've got that life off the finish that we spoke about. Really like the blade work of the two women there. Jennifer Astley, the graduate of Durham University, now studying at Balliol, and really holding that blade in well. The tall woman in the three seats, Greta Miller, the American graduate of University College Berkeley and Princeton, must be really offering a lot of power to the boat. And you can see there, isn't that interesting, how Artemis has moved on the inside of Athena. What do you reckon about those tactics?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think probably, you know, if you've been a little bit critical, I think probably both coxes just need to look at a little bit of their positioning here. I think probably, you know, Artemis maybe a little bit too far over on the Surrey side there. I think Athena are doing a bit of a better job. Maybe there is a bit of manoeuvring in there to just try and avoid the puzzles, but
yeah, so the stations have reversed from the start station, and now on the Surrey bank we've got this trailing crew from Artemis with the president in the 7 seat, Zara Helin, trying desperately to get that long stroke, just get those shoulders round the back at the finish. And her stroke woman Juliet Russell down at 33, both crews down at 33, but Alana Burdis, the cox, has chosen to take that line on the inside of the leading crew. Athena out there in the dark colours.
What usually happens here, Martin, we're just sort of like just over halfway on the course now, and as you're coming around the Surrey bend and you've just gone past St Paul's, you end up going into Chiswick, which is effectively an island in the middle of the course. And sometimes, as a cox, you can go and get your positions a little bit mixed up because you're just looking to go down the middle of the course, where you go between the Surrey bank and the Ayot, and you just go down the middle of it. And actually, at that point of time, you still want to be a little bit more further over to the Ayot. Otherwise, you just cut the bend and you just go in the, you know,
in
slightly,
the slack water.
Yeah, in the slack water. And you can actually see now, I think Artemis now have sort of like recognised that as you come out the end of the Ayot, you've all of a sudden gone, actually, hold a minute, I'm no longer in the middle of the course, I'm too far over to Surrey. And then they started to go and reposition themselves.
So is this where Andy Nelder and James Powell think, I wish we could have got these 8s closer together, or are they loving what they're seeing from Athena out in front? As we're looking at Athena now, crew in the dark colours, the stroke woman Maria Nielsen-Scott ahead of her sister in the other boat, Helen Nielsen-Scott. Thrown really well, isn't she?
Yeah, look, I think Athena there looking really, really nice. Great rhythm there. And whilst now the race is not sort of like side by side, and I'm sure Andy would want to go and see more of that, we saw early on some good sort of like side by side. I think, you know, obviously through that start phase and the transition through middle sets, they were still like nice equal. I think you've got to be pleased though with how the crews are rowing. You know, particularly pleased here with the leading boat.
Oh, that blade on stroke side. Look at the blades going beautifully. They're so synced up, aren't they, on stroke side?
The blade work looks really good. Like, I never really look at bodies, but if you look at the blade work, particularly on stroke side there with Athena, it's really sharp, really good. It's nice pick up, just collecting the water and then moving on it.
So let's give a shout out to those stroke side oarswomen in Athena, Jen Astley in the 2 seat, Esther Austin in the 4 seat, the Kiwi, Freya Willis in the 6 seat, the Aussie, and at stroke Maria Nielsen-Scott. Beautifully synced up blades, as you can see. The crew that's leading as we come round to Barnes Bridge. You can see the yellow dot on that screen on the right, tells you where we are on the course. You can even see the finish outlined in red. Not long to go now, but I do think Athena have continued to move out on Artemis as we've gone down Chiswick. And I'm not sure there's much that the Artemis crew closest to the camera at the moment can do about it.
No, I think it's a hard one to come back from, but I do think now the critical moment in that Artemis is actually to finish the race strong. You've still got the Middlesex Bend, you've still got the phase now between Barnes and Chiswick. You know, now there's a little bit more of rowing with pride, finding the quality, and actually, you know, it's refocus, finish with a strong rhythm, and then actually see if then you can inch back.
And what can Alana Burdis, the cox of Artemis, say to her crew at this point in the race, coming up to Barnes Bridge? Is she going to be truthful about the distance?
I think the rowers know it. There's no point in making that up. You know, at this point in the way, for me, we just need to have like a internal refocus, find the quality in our boat, and just keep it really simple. So you just need to start breaking down the stroke phase, working on elements to go and improve. Be that like the pickup, so we're just collecting the boat together, or being it, you know, at the finish, just like finishing it off together to go and build a bit of the platform. You know, just looking from the outside here, we've got a great view of the pitch of the boat. You know, maybe actually, why don't we try this last sort of like 3.5, 4 minutes, let's just like tighten up the finish, just look for that one press through the legs and feel it together. You know, let's go and control things within our power. There's no point in talking about the other crew now. You can't control them. You've just got to go and focus on your own boat, finish each stroke off, build the platform.
So we're looking at Juliet Russell, stroke of the Artemis crew in white, trailing the crew in dark blue. Athena is the name they're going under, the two martial warrior Greek goddesses, Athena and Artemis. Names chosen by the president, Sarah Helene, who is just one behind the stroke woman, this trailing crew from Artemis as they shoot Barnes Bridge. Maybe there's a little more life coming from Artemis now. The blade popping out a little bit from the Canadian Kate Friesen in the 2 seat. Perhaps you'd like to hold that in a little bit longer. Must be getting really knackered at this stage of the race though, Phelan.
Yeah, you've got about a kilometre to go now of the race. We've just come under Barnes Railway Bridge. We're heading towards Chiswick. You've got the final Middlesex Bend around here now. Yeah, we're looking at about 750k to go. You've obviously got the stream with you, but it's just about finishing with quality. And I think like that Athena boat has done a great job. You've been together for a week, and actually the blade work there is really, really good. Looks tight already. I think, you know, great job there of just coming together as a crew.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to those bow side oarswomen. The stroke sider's got to go just before Barnes Bridge, but Phoebe Mountain up in the bow seat, riding shotgun at 3. Greta Miller in the Athena crew at 5. Alison Carrington, the crew captain, at 7. Sarah Marshall. And she has anchored that boat superbly, Sarah Marshall, in the 7th seat, really allowing Maria Nielsen-Scott in the stroke seat to set that beautiful rhythm the crew has used to move away from their rivals, the Artemis boats, pretty much, I guess, since the Barn Elms Bend.
Yeah, it's just been a very, very convincing display. It was interesting in the interviews when you were speaking with both athletes and how they talked about the fact that actually they're pulling together a lot of experience from a lot of different places. And, you know, we'd said, oh, actually, maybe they don't have much blue boat experience, but clearly there's a lot of experience in the boat there. There's some very good personalities, and they've pulled together very well in a short space of time, and they've executed that race almost perfectly. I think, you know, walking away after Middlesex, you've had that strong mid-race pace. You're going to be very pleased being in that Athena crew right now.
Yeah, absolutely. As the Athena crew comes up towards the finish line of the boat race, Mountain, Astley, Miller, Austin, Carrington, Willis, Marshall, Nielsen-Scott, Cox by Tara Slade take the win. It is Athena, and you can see the delight. It's only a trial race, but that's what it means to come first over the championship course. Next time they race this full distance, Phelan, it'll be the actual women's boat race itself.
I think I have to say I thought Maria Nielsen-Scott and Sarah Marshall really set up a nice rhythm in the stern of that Athena boat. Really good length, nice tight finishes, and particularly just how they were collecting the boat. Very good stuff.
Well, there's a lot of women up in the bows of that Athena boat, you know, like Jen Astley, the Durham University oarswoman who's now at Balliol, and Greta Miller in the 3-seat, graduate of Berkeley and Princeton in the US. They're going to be thinking, you know, maybe we need to be up in the stern of the blue boat. We've delivered there. Because I guess you might say, well, is it a stern fall from both boats that are going to make the blue boat? But it's not like that, is it?
No, it's not. I think, you know, it's not down to, like, you know, there's always quite an art in personalities. It's not about, you know, having the biggest 8 people, the strongest ergos. You need different types of people for each position. You know, generally speaking, your stroke man is either a stroke or a 2.
Yeah.
Whereas you know, like some people just fit in like certain seats, and you've just got to go and work out what that is, which enables the best. And sometimes it's not the strongest people who are actually going to be the ones who sort of like enable everything to happen. You know, from my days, I remember people like George Nash and Alex Gregory. They weren't the strongest, but basically anyone they went with, the boat just went amazingly. And that's because they just enabled everyone else to sort of like maximise their potential. But I think overall, I think Andy's going to go and be really pleased with that today. It was a clean race. You know, both coxes did well to go and let the athletes do the rowing, do the talking. We saw some really good displays of rowing, rhythm. I think tactically, obviously, Athena there did a great job. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of bonuses today. We've got down the course. I do think it was great just to have some like nice clear conditions as well. So you don't end up having to think about external factors. I'm sure it's probably also given Andy plenty of food for thought now over Christmas when he's eating his Christmas turkey.
Yeah, because it's not long from now, really, that they're going to go away on training camp, aren't they? They'll do some seat racing, and then they'll come away with their final selections. You know, the crew's going to be known around February time.
Yeah. I don't think people actually appreciate how intense and how quick everything happens now. You know, you have a number of key milestones. You know, you've got like Force Head. Then obviously you've had the Trial 8s now. There's a short break now for Christmas, but as soon as Christmas is out the way, you know, it's away, training camp, start building. Andy will already start having his plans then for what the boat race will, you know, his boat in his mind will be looking like. They're going to have to go through a period of seat racing, some final testing. And then then the crew is going to be formed by sort of like in February time, and then we're rolling on into the fixtures, and before you know it, it's the race. So it's a really intense period now coming up.
Wow. So that is the Artemis crew in the white long sleeve tops, just getting their warm kit from the coach, and camera's focused on them. I guess they're going to be gutted. Well, they will be gutted because they're in the lead at this point in the race, aren't they? I'd say.
Yeah, but you know, this is the interesting point. You know, we talked about this, like coming off the back of like the high tempo start. It was all about the transition. You've moved from anaerobic to aerobic. You're coming to the end of the buoy line. You're sort of like 500-600 meters into the race. You're coming into that Middlesex bend. At that point now, actually, you know, the lungs are already starting to burn a little bit. You're still feeling it on the legs, and you've just got to transition into a rhythm that you can sustain. And what was very clear and evident was that actually the rhythm, the baseline rhythm that Athena had was just much stronger, much more cohesive, and maybe just that little bit longer. I think, you know, you called it earlier, Martin, just saying maybe Artemis just a little bit shorter there with the finishes. You can see here just in the replays, maybe not quite so tight at the release. And, you know, just those small little inch differences just make a difference, particularly in eights racing. If you're just not like completing the straight together, you know, it just feels just that little bit shorter.
So I think that is the victorious crew over there on the far side by Chiswick Quay. Are these guys going to have to row back? They're not going into that boathouse and getting the boats trailed up. I think they're going to have to row back
it's
to Putney.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be coming. It's probably the worst part in a way. Obviously on boat race day you come out at Mortlake, but for this now you've got a very, very long wind down paddle all the way back to Putney. But I think also as well for those two crews as well, I know they've done a race, they've done their job here, but you know, it's you still want to get something out of it and, you know, finish well.
So that was the Trial 8 for the 2023 boat race. Why not go and have a look at last year's fantastic races, the 2022 boat races. Don't go anywhere, just have a look at our highlights from last year.
We just fought all the way, we didn't let them get away. We know that their plan was to row away and get a course record, and they didn't row away.
I think it's still settling in and sinking in, being a season full of hard work, so it's always good to have a result like that to finish it off with.
Of course, winning's more fun than losing. Yeah, we raced really hard. We had a great row this morning. I said to someone, you know, they're going to have to be really good to beat us, and that's what they were.
I think they just made every phase count. They got a good start in, they came down onto their pace, and we were ready for Cambridge to put a lot in early, which they did, and I think we did the things that we said we were going to do, and we practiced, and I think that was the really important bit.
Pretty gutted, obviously, to have lost. We put a lot in these programmes, and it sort of takes over your whole life. We knew it was going to be a bit of a war. We talked about it as a bit of a war, and it was kind of that. We got out well. We were pretty happy with our start. how we settled into it. I think Oxford just had a bit more pace than us through the middle.
You could see watching the race, it was relentless, and my crew really gave it everything to hold on to them and to not give them anything that we worked so hard to do.
Those guys coming in just sort of led the squad from the front so well, and it was really inspiring to have those guys on the team and, you know, producing some insane performances on the rowing machine out on the water, and I think having them just brought the level up hugely.
Just all the way, it was a very good fight, but yeah, happy to come with an Oxford victory today.
You could just tell in September when the first day we all got together, there was this energy and this commitment, and I remember I said we're gonna win the boat race, we're gonna win the ISIS race, and we're gonna be an extremely close team, and everybody just completely bought into that.
We were just so grateful to have a race, and so this year we realised that coming back here and being able to have the spectators and everything, just how much more it adds. It's not just about us, it's about being able to celebrate it with our family and our entire team and everything, and so being able to do that this year has been really special.
Yeah, and will we be back for another race next year?
Oh, I got one more in me!
Nothing like I've ever rode in before. So much more media than we're used to, and so many more people. It's actually really nice, I think.
The most important thing about the experience has been the people. The 8 women I had rowing with me today are some of the most dedicated, driven people I've ever had the pleasure to know, and that for me is what I want to stay with me, and no matter what the result is, and obviously today it wasn't the result we wanted, I know that we'll have that when we go forwards. And you know, the event itself has been super fun to be part of, and great to have the crowds and everything, but the important thing for me is the other people.
Well, that was really exciting, wasn't it, seeing those races last year? I tell you what, you know, it was such a privilege to see the standard of those men's and women's crews with, you know, oarswomen like Grace Prendergrass, Imogen Grant in the Cambridge boat, Erin Relick in the American boat, Gabrielle Smith, and then in the men's boat, that Oxford crew was so stacked, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think both were.
Yeah.
You know, you think at the end of the day, there's the Olympians on both sides of the fence. I don't think you can say, you know, in a way like, I know Oxford won on the men's and Cambridge on the women, but actually both boats had a number of Olympians in, a number of Olympian medals. You know, you saw actually just the Cambridge boat, obviously Ollie and Tom from that boat. You know, they went on and they had a very, very good season in the pair for GB. You'd probably expect them to actually be in the GB8 this year as well, so, you know.
Do you know, I did think that the Cambridge men's boat would be a little closer off the start phase to the Oxford. I kind of thought, you know, with Ollie Parish in the stroke seat and, you know, that erg pair of Tom George and Ollie Griffith, that they'd be, you know, right there off the start, but Oxford had them.
Yeah, no, Oxford did a great job last year on the men's side of things. You know, I think it was great to go and see Angus up in the 7 seat as well. Maybe proving that actually, you know, scullers actually make very good sweet rowers. Well done, Angus. Great guy.
Yeah, definitely. But it was, I think it was such a privilege to see, you know, Grace Prendergrass, she's an amazing oarswoman. She's got that slight scoliosis of the spine, which means that she's going to row on bow side. But I think that that combination that she had with Imogen Grant in the Cambridge boat was just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, you know, the Cambridge women's boat I thought was exceptional last year. You know, big shout out to Grace. Grace is actually going to be joining the commentating team tomorrow.
Yeah,
so
excited about that.
That'll be really good. But, you know, I have to say, not a lot's talked about it, but I thought Imogen last year was phenomenal. She had an absolutely phenomenal season. I think it's not that easy sometimes for a lightweight to transition, and also as well to get a lightweight to go and stroke the boat. You know, from previous experiences, when you're a lightweight rower compared to like a heavyweight, obviously your upper body's that little bit more smaller, so you're actually a little bit more agile and quicker to get back onto your feet off the rock over, and it can sometimes mean that actually, you know, the heavier people behind you, the bigger heavyweights, they take slower, and so they're always trying to catch up with you, and it can actually be quite disruptive having a lightweight in there. But Imogen did that transition so well, and you know, it was phenomenal. And, you know, like you said, she, you know, won the boat race sweeping. She then transitioned back into the lightweight single. She won. Then she went into the lightweight women's double. She won. You know, absolutely outstanding athlete. And actually, you know, that's something what you see here. It's sometimes like forgotten, just like the quality of the programme at both Oxford and Cambridge. And actually the number of athletes over the years who have learnt, developed their skills doing races like this, and then actually going on to a platform to row internationally for, you know, their country and win medals as well.
Absolutely. You're seeing their Fulham football ground in the distance. That will have matches recommencing on Boxing Day, no doubt. Just our sponsors at the bottom of the screen there. Gemini, our partner sponsor, and then Graduate Hotels, Rival Kit, Chapel Down and Hydro. But lots of people involved in the boat race, and one organisation that's very closely involved is the RNLI, and we heard from James Anthony earlier. So James, tell us about your involvement with these Oxford Trial 8s today.
Okay, so I'm a full-time member of staff up at Chiswick Lifeboat. Obviously, the boat race is on our patch, and we're here today, a few of us from the station, just to check life jackets, make sure they are in date, functioning properly, etc., etc. And of course, also to celebrate the RNLI's partnership with the Gemini boat race.
Okay, so just talk to us about that, checking with the life jackets. The coxes of both crews racing obviously wear life jackets, and then clearly the coaches and the umpires in the launches following are wearing life. So you're doing all of those checks?
Yeah, so each club will have its own supply of life jackets, and like anything that works, occasionally they don't work, and we're here hopefully to preempt that, point out things that might be out of date or might be fitted incorrectly, and just head off potential disaster.
And will you be following the races in a launch today?
No. What happens is the Port of London puts out a notice to mariners informing all the river users, including Chiswick Lifeboat, that the trials are taking place. There isn't a river closure, but obviously we do our best not to inconvenience the trials, search and rescue aside.
So I know that you are involved during the boat race, and we were talking earlier, and you described how you rescued quite a few people from the foreshore at Barnes.
Yes, certainly when the women's race started being run on the same day as the men's race. I can't remember the year. I'm having a stab, possibly 2015. Chiswick rescued around about 50 people caught on the foreshore, all spectators, just standing on the foreshore but with a wall behind them which they couldn't possibly climb on the incoming tide.
So how many people did you rescue?
Certainly about 50. We had it was a record year for people rescued by Chiswick Lifeboat Station.
And when you're involved in that work, you're not actually following the race down, you're stationed on a particular place in the river?
Yeah, so it's a completely different day, at the risk of stating the obvious. A lifeboat will follow the flotilla that follows the boat race, but then the RNLI also puts other boats out on and around the river, crewed by volunteers, and it's our job just to keep an eye on spectators, if you like.
Well, you must be so experienced in terms of river conditions, and I know you've been working last night. Just describe to us the river conditions for the Trial 8s today.
Well, the fog has fortunately lifted, sorry. I mean, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face 2 hours ago, but now sort of 150, 200 metres viz, which on the Thames is adequate for trialling, and literally half a mile upriver there probably won't be any fog.
And the conditions for racing, in your opinion?
Cold. I mean, I'd sooner be on a boat with an engine in it, but I'm sure they'll work up a sweat soon enough.
Yeah, and do you get into anything about rowers and hypothermia and that kind of stuff?
If rowers fall in the water, I mean, at this level, everyone's quite fit, but nonetheless, you know, if you've got a rowing 8, there is always going to be someone fit. You know, it doesn't matter how fit you are, who will suffer more than the other people due to the cold, and he or she is the person that needs a blanket, and hopefully it is only ever a blanket, and that will suffice. That and a warm shower.
That's magic. James, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
So, being involved with the boat race, you just realise how many different agencies have to be around on the day and in the planning, and it's great the RNLI are here.
Oh yeah, I think the RNLI are huge and supportive partners of the boat race. I think sometimes you don't appreciate how much goes on behind the scenes to make the actual event happen, and the RNLI are one of the most critical people in that.
Yeah, I didn't realise they have a full-time station here at Chiswick.
Yeah.
So that guy James, he'd basically been working last night, so he's going to go back home and have a kip, I think, but not before watching these Trial 8 races. You get a view of the stream really ramping up. That's an RNLI boat, isn't it?
Yeah. All station ready to be called into action if needed.
I'll tell you what, if one of those washes from that boat going at full speed hit a rowing boat, you'd know about it, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things you actually notice. I always find the most amusing thing to watch. You know, the beginning of the boat race is when you see the flotilla following the cruise down, and you just see the huge weight coming, and there's always a few young people who have maybe had a few drinks and are sitting on the banks and stuff who don't actually appreciate the weight coming, and they always get a few like wet feet at.
Yeah. So I gather there's a new introduction this year of mahikis over in the park where we're at London Rowing Club down at Putney, a little bit up downstream from where that pitch has been taken. But mahikis.
Yeah, there's in the continued efforts for the boat race to expand and actually to go and support the local area and community. There's going to be a new sort of like fan park which is set up in Bishop's Park, just on the other side of us. And yeah, I think there's going to be a bit of a mahiki experience there being brought. So it's always a great day to be down on the banks, and hopefully now there's just a little bit more fun to sort of like cater for everyone's interests.
Yeah, it's a fantastic day out. If you've ever been down on the banks of the Thames, one of the great free shows in world sport, the Oxford-Cambridge boat race, 26th of March, I think around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if memory serves, the women's race.
Yeah.
Make sure you're down there, but lots of action to come in between. We've got the fixtures racing and where the cruise race, other boat clubs like Leander and Oxford Brooks and so on, and that's going to be coming up in the new year. But before that, we've got another interview to listen to. So upcoming fixtures.
There you go. As we were speaking, so it's good. What I always like about these as well is always like the international. Certainly, one of the highlights has to be the Dutch national team coming over.
If that's the Dutch national 8 that took the silver medal behind the British 8, that's going to be a stonking fixture, isn't it?
Yeah, it will. Well,
if it's that 8 and not the under 23s,
yeah,
they might send. I don't know.
Although I always think, and it's the worst thing because I've been on the receiving end of it, is that you can come over as a national team and actually facing against a blue boat, you have a really, really hard time against it. You're on like a semi-jolly because you're still at the beginning of your period. Your build up to racing, you're aiming for August to be at your peak, whereas these, Cambridge Oxford crews, their peak is going to be like that March, April time. They're absolutely geared up, and you're not quite there, and actually you can get caught out sometimes. And again, look at those. There's going to be some great fixtures. I think, actually, the Leander women are supremely strong now. That will be a great fixture there. Obviously, Brooks, some very good racing.
I think Brooks will want to get 100% records on the crews from Oxford and Cambridge this year.
Yeah, they've been performing well in recent years. You know what you get with Brooks. They're hard racers, but at the end of the day, there I know it says, you're going to be racing against Oxford, Brooks and Leander, but effectively, again, that's national team crews. And that's across the men and the women. I think the Leander women's program is so strong at the moment. The men's program, is just full of internationals. You'll end up actually, if CUBC race against the Leander men, you're probably going to have Tom George and Ollie Wynne Griffith in that, who are obviously ex-CUBC last year. So they're not easy fixtures, but they are fantastic fixtures.
They are fantastic fixtures, and coming up for you, we've got an interview which I think is with Matthew Holland. And Matthew Holland is an assistant umpire, and it's rolling for you now.
Okay, Matthew, I know you're involved on the boat race in so many levels. Tell us what you're doing here on the Trial 8's day.
So here on Trial 8's, I'm down as an assistant umpire. So the boat race are umpired by a collection of old blues, so that's people who've rowed for either the men or the women for Oxford or Cambridge in one of the boat race crews. And we are selected by the clubs, and our job is to basically make sure that the races are safe and fair. So I've just been down with the Cambridge lightweight women doing a briefing. So we do the toss for stations, and we talk them through how we're going to get them to the start, how we're going to turn them, and then the conduct of the race, how we warn them, how we keep it safe and fair for all of the crews.
Now, I know this is a big day for the rowers because they're going head-to-head over the championship course, but I guess it's also a big day for the umpires.
Oh, it's brilliant, actually, because the great thing about Trial 8's is you get to see how the coxes behave against each other. And obviously the coxes are fighting for selections. They're trying to make a name for themselves to the coaches, but what they don't might necessarily realise is that we as the umpires are watching too, because our job is to learn how the coxes are going to behave, how they respond to our warnings, where they're going to try and steer, what corners they're going to try and cut to put their crews ahead, so that on boat race day we can keep an eye out on them, and we know, if someone's a bit cheeky down here, then we know to keep an extra eye on them and perhaps warn them a little bit earlier if they're going to try something.
Now, of course, you've coxed the boat race for Cambridge. Can you remember back to your Trial 8's and how much tension there is on that particular day?
Oh, yeah. Trial 8's is actually one of my favourites because it's super tense, and you get really good internal aggression between the crews. You want to beat your teammates because you want to win the race, and everyone's trained to be such strong racers. But what I love about Trial 8's is you cross the finish and it's all friendly. You know that the race you've had will help put both crews and all of your teammates in a better position. But I guess what the umpires might not realise as well is that the coxes are learning what they can get away with the umpires as well. I was always keeping an eye on my steering and checking when I was being warned and when I wasn't. So you can work out the threshold that the umpire will give you on boat race day, so you can push that to its limit.
And are these umpires, Matt Smith for the Oxford women and Tony Reynolds for the Oxford men, are they going to be involved umpiring the boat race, or will there be another selection of umpires?
Oh no, they'll be umpiring the boat race. So Tony Reynolds, who rode in the Cambridge crew in the late 80s, and Matt Smith, who rode for Oxford in the early noughties, are umpiring the men's and women's races respectively. And so they'll be umpiring the Trial 8's for both Oxford and Cambridge today and tomorrow for the women and men respectively, so that they can get a feel for how the coxes behave and how the crews respond, and also so the crews can get an idea of what their umpire is going to be like. But yeah, they're going to be umpiring the main races.
And at Trial 8's, are the coxes less aggressive than the actual boat race, or perhaps more so?
I guess it depends, because I guess more so in the sense that you know that if there's an accident, if there's an incident, a foul in the Trial 8's, perhaps it matters less than if there were an incident in the boat race where you could ultimately get disqualified. But also, as I said, you want to try and make sure that your umpire doesn't think you're too aggressive. You want to build a sweet picture in the umpire's eye so that you can get away with a little bit more on boat race day.
Now, I know also you're involved with the TV commentary, Matthew, for the boat race over the last couple of years. Tell us something about your involvement with that.
That's been the most amazing opportunity, actually. I've been utterly bewildered by the amount of not just technical work that goes into producing a good coverage of the race, but the art that's involved, having the director in your ear saying, oh, let's line up this camera shot, let's get that one up, and that looks good. It's just extraordinary. But for me as well, it's a real privilege to be able to be given sort of quite unique access to both crews, to the men and the women's side, to the Oxford and Cambridge, so that I can build a picture of what the personalities are like, what the crews are like, and getting that insight into both camps and into the whole background of the race I've found really, really special. But on boat race day, it's so exciting. You get all the screens, you get the best view in the world, and you just get to talk about what you absolutely love, like good racing and the boat race. It's fantastic.
It's lovely to see that infectious spirit on your face. Matthew Holland, thank you very much.
Thanks.
So that was Matthew Holland, and you can see there the view of Fulham Football Ground. It's the reverse view from round about Hammersmith Bridge. And at the bottom there are sponsors. Partner sponsor Gemini, of course, who look after the boat race, Graduate Hotels, Rival Kit, and Hydro. Chapel Down, of course, provide the bubbly. And let's take a look at one of our partner sponsors, Hydro.
This is not your typical rower. Quiet and sleek. Immersive 22-inch display. 2,000 plus live and on-demand workouts taught by world-class athletes. Bring the outside in and explore London to Scotland or Miami. Try today with a 30-day risk-free trial. Shop now at hydro.co.uk.
So, Phelan, you've been on Hydro?
Yeah, I have actually. Last year, just before the boat race, the Hydro, because they put together sort of like training programs and everything, and actually some of the Hydro athletes, and actually some of sort of like retired athletes like myself, a few actually former Blues and Olympians, we all came down on the course, and we actually did side-by-side racing over the actual race course. And then actually we had, it was myself and Mary Whipple, who is a very, very distinguished golfer.
Yeah.
Like, Mary's won so many Olympic golds. But we raced over the course, we went and recorded it, and then we've converted that into actually sort of like training programs. So if you get on your Hydro, you can actually go and race the boat race course, do a bit of side-by-side racing, and maybe you do or don't want to listen to myself and Mary shout you down.
Yeah,
so
I think I would have listened.
it was actually loads and loads of good fun, and it's actually you start to like seeing some of your friends again back in the racing, and actually got quite competitive the side by side in that as well. So there you go.
So Hydro, go and try it out. The ideal way to exercise. What we're going to do now is just do a deep dive into both Oxford and Cambridge crews last year in 2022 to have a look at last year's trials and exactly what went on. And we're going to take a look at both of those crews right now.
Between two ideally perfectly evenly matched crews.
Just going after it, knowing we're the same speed.
I was actually really nervous for it. The most nervous I've been for a race in quite a long time. Any chance you have to line up on the start line, I think it's a good time to have a go. Start was really fast, really competitive. For a lot of the race, we were pretty even. Partway through Surrey Bend, I think we started to move a bit.
We started moving back on them, and I think we had really good momentum. We were kind of just sitting up, chipping the boat along.
I think that was probably the most defining moment.
Well, they were able to really keep the hammer down when they were under pressure. The Coxes did a good job.
They managed the racing situations very well. Their situational awareness was good during the race.
Between now and the boat race is a really unique opportunity to work really hard and push ourselves every day.
Every day, every stroke, every training. I'm really excited to race.
Not a question of if, it's a question of how fast are we going to be able to go on that day.
Trial 8 is a race, internal race, where we pick 2 match crews, or as near match crews as we can from our own squad.
Down the full track, with all that side by side entails, is the closest we will come to the boat race before the event.
It gives us the only chance we have in the whole season to actually run a continuous piece from start to finish.
You have the coin toss, you line up against another crew on the start, you race the full course, and it's essentially a dress rehearsal.
There's definitely some nerves, there's definitely some excitement and energy before the race, and that also just adds to the fun of it as well.
Coming down onto the tideway always poses a formidable challenge.
They raced very well. They really went after it in the first half of it. They had enough of an advantage off the first bend.
I thought we did a really good job of staying calm at that point in the race.
Then we got to probably a couple of minutes after Hammersmith Bridge, and I was in the stroke seat. I shouted at Jack and I said, "Up to, let's go now," and we essentially just kind of put in a massive move.
The whole period of Trial 8, we're looking to build combinations, selection, identify combinations of people that work well together.
It's certainly challenging. It's different to sort of anything I've done in the past.
And you never know what's going to happen on each bend. You never know what's going to happen when you come under each bridge.
After everything with COVID and moving the race around, I think just to be back here in London, hopefully with a big crowd, it should be really exciting, and I think a really promising year for the club.
So that was the interviews they gave after last year's Trial 8. I'd forgotten that Charlie Elwes was stroking that boat last year.
Yeah.
That was a pretty decent effort from him in the stroke seat. I think he's 8-1, didn't it?
Yeah. Sean likes doing that, though. He occasionally puts what you think is your big sort of like 5 or 6 man in the stroke seat. He did it a few years back with Malcolm Howard. Malcolm who's like a giant Canadian. He's one of the strongest guys I know and have competed against. And he put him in the stroke seat. And that was at the time when Stan Constantine Loulis was actually there. And I remember the time. Obviously, I'm good friends with Stan. Was very put out that he wasn't in the stroke seat and had Malcolm there. But no, Sean has like the habit of just like throwing a few sort of like curveballs, trying out things. I think from his interview, how he was saying he likes to look at combinations, and it's not combinations of 4, but it's it's like combination of pairs and what works, and how you create those pair units, and then how those pair units sort of like join together. Jürgen had a very similar principle as well when we were rowing, in the national team, that he would a lot of the time like find pairs, and through those pairs combinations, they would sort of like form the basis of, you know, various boats. You know, for example, you know, for many years, Alex Gregory and Mo Sabihi, you know, they row together as a pair, and he would always see that as a combination working together. It might not be that they would always sit next to each other in the boat, but you know, it would be around finding those combinations who work well together, both on and also off the water.
I find myself looking at Sean Bowden's choice of coaches now, and choice of strokes, and he's got the Swiss-Canadian Jean-Philippe Dufour. We'll take a look at the crews nearer the time of the actual race, but Jean-Philippe Dufour, who rode in the he's got boat race history back in 2020 and 2021, and Alex Bebb, the Canadian, at stroke in the other boat, and I guess without too much having, you know, not seen, there not being any blues, we haven't seen them really in action, those guys.
No, but he has gone with experience there. Both of them have experience of rowing in ISIS. They know the course, and he's clearly gone and picked on that as a reason.
Okay. So just a few days before this, I was at the President's Challenge, which was where the losing cruise president challenges the winning cruise president to a row on the championship course over the Thames, and it was quite an exciting event, and we're just going to take a look at that event now.
Great evening.
On behalf of Oxford University Women's Boat Club.
On behalf of Cambridge University Boat Club.
I challenge Cambridge University Boat Club.
Oxford University Boat Club.
To an 8-oared race to be held over the championship course.
On Sunday, the 26th of March, 2023.
On behalf of Oxford University Boat Club.
On behalf of Cambridge University Boat Club.
I accept the challenge.
It was quite interesting, that event, because the presidents were kind of pitched together. They were in a little hall area outside the room where the TV interviews. They basically had to entertain each other for about 3 hours each. Just sat looking at each other.
Yeah.
And of course that's the only time that, like, it's the first time they met, and the next time they meet will be the coin toss of the actual boat race, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's true. What is interesting though, that I always think the President's Challenge is first March, where it's starting to become a little bit real.
Yeah.
You know, that's when the reality dawns. And yeah, I guess it's when you see your enemy firsthand for the sort of like the first time, and also as well you start to, it depends, sometimes with those that they're more open than others, but you can start to get a feel about, you know, how their season's starting to, you know, unwind, or, you know, how their journey is going, and, you know, you can do a few things. You always want to be a little bit cagey. Sometimes you're obviously bigging up. It's always the classic, isn't it? How's it going? Oh yeah, it's going really well. We've got a great team together. We're absolutely flying out the blocks. So, you know, it's but a really, really important moment in sort of like the boat race journey.
So the off for the Oxford men's trilates, the cruise of Beetle Racing Wedge, will be happening at 14:40. But before that, we can see Fulham Football Ground, Craven Cottage, just there on the right of the course, the new stand. But we're going to take a look at the boat race course, just so you can orientate yourself to that.
It is just over 4 miles of the twisting Thames between Putney and Mortlake, racing upstream but with the flow of the incoming tide. Crews choose either the south bank, the Surrey station, or the north, which is Middlesex. The initial slight advantage is to Middlesex around Fulham's Craven Cottage. After 3.5 or 4 minutes, the mile marker is reached, and the landmark of the former Harrods Furniture Depository before Hammersmith Bridge. The majority of crews leading here go on to win, and now the bend favours the Surrey station, a large, sweeping turn past halfway into the Strait of Chiswick Reach and past the island Chiswick 8. Quite often into a headwind, this can be exposed in rougher water. A final slight bend to Surrey, and then it turns back to favour the North Bank, under Barnes Bridge, into the final 1,000 metres, and towards the finish just before Chiswick Bridge.
So that was a look at the course. This is the front end of the course. It does matter which station you're on. Some say the Surrey station, which is the opposite one to Fulham Football Club, is favoured. Fulham Football Club's on the Middlesex station, but we're going to take a look at the coin toss which happened for the Oxford men's boat race trial earlier and see which crew chose what station.
Right, which crew, well, you could call, you're the president, and which crew are you in? Beetle. We're on Beetle, okay, so you call. And it's tails, so Wedge. Which station? Surrey. Right, so Wedge are on Surrey. Now,
so we saw Tony Reynolds, the umpire, doing the coin toss there, and we can announce who's on what station.
Yeah,
Freeland.
so Wedge will be on Surrey and Beetle will be on Middlesex.
And if you're like me, wondering why on earth those two names got chosen, Beetle and Wedge is an iconic restaurant on the Wallingford stretch that Oxford row on. But enough of those names. Why don't we have a look at the two crews racing this afternoon? So you can see Beetle and Wedge. Tassilo von Müller, the president, in Beetle. They're actually on opposite sides in terms of the actual stations, and we'll have a look.
Also a great picture of Charlie celebrating
It
from
is,
last
isn't
year,
it?
isn't there?
So Alex Bev, the stroke of Beetle, the Canadian, as you heard, Phelan, he'll say experience is what he's got. Also this man, Isis oarsman, last year, the reserve boat, Tassilo von Müller, learnt to row on the Baldenize in Essen originally, and he's president. Six man, a Brit, Tom Sharrock, part of the victorious 2021 squad, which must have been a huge experience for him rowing with those big names. In the 5-seat, Jan Ole Ernst from Germany, learnt to row in Berlin, and he raced the spare pairs race in Ely in 2021, the only Oxford crew that won that year. Johnny Davison in the 4-seat. Don't have a lot of biog for Johnny. We know that he's at St Catherine's. Fill in your biog next time, Johnny, and we'll talk about you. Alfred Orpin in the 3-seat. First rowing club was York City Rowing Club, and his biggest achievement was qualifying for the Prince of Wales at Henley with his mate Aidan and two lads from the GB Start Centre in Leeds. At 2, the American Colson Andrews. First rowing club was the Episcopal Academy, but rowing for OUBC is his biggest achievement in any 10 years of rowing. And then up in the bows, it's William Loosley. William Loosley is an undergraduate from Chew Valley School, and he's studying geography. He learnt to row at St Edmunds College Boat Club. Cox Tobias Bernard, I was having a chat with him, the former Westminster schoolboy. I think he coxed their first date in 2021, coached by Josh Butler, and he coxed the fastest 4 at the Four's Head from Magdalen College. So there we go on to Wedge, the crew on Surrey. Jean-Philippe Dufour, the Swiss-Canadian, in the stroke seat. Boat race history in 2020, the cancelled year in 2021. Says his biggest achievement would be winning the boat race, but he hasn't done that yet.
James Forward, another experienced man from 2021, the undergraduate formerly from Nottingham High School, studying politics, philosophy and economics at Pembroke. European under-23 champion, so he's got international experience to bring into the picture. At 6, Harry Ahmad, the Aussie, as you can see, studying statistical science, College Oriel. He learnt to row, or he captained Xavier College in their first A final of the Victorian Head of the River, which is a big deal down in Australia. And he's now anchoring that wedge crew in the 6th seat. And we're getting a long look at him there. Right, the big 5-man, James Doran, tall man, isn't he? 2 metres tall, and he learnt to row just a couple of boathouses down from where we are in London Rowing Club at Dulwich College. And he is double under-23 European Championship medalist. Not surprised with that height. Another Aussie, Anthony Kenny, in the 4-seat, graduate of Harvard Merton College. His first rowing club was Sydney Rowing Club, a beautiful club on the Parramatta. And he's rowed in the Harvard-Yale boat race too. What experience. Nick Elkington in the 3-seat, the British-German joint nationality. And he rowed for 5 years at schools, won 5 silver medals in his 6 years. And King's College School Wimbledon Boat Club. Andy Bridger in the 2-seat. Andy is from Britain, and his rowing history has been part of his college boat club as it's grown in size and scope, trying to push what it is capable of as a college boat club. Biggest achievement for him, rowing at Henley in 2021. The Kiwi, Andy Wakefield, in the bow seat, graduate of the University of Canterbury, now studying an MBA at Green Templeton. Says he started rowing at school, hasn't been able to stop it yet. Louis Corrigan is the Cox, studying medicine, very demanding course at Wadham. He started as a rower back in 2016 when he was 13 and has been going ever since and switched into coxing. Says it's a fine line between being assertive and supportive. And Phelan Hill, co-commentator, will know all about that.
Well, there you go. It's two good crews. They look pretty equally matched. Interestingly here, I think obviously Sean has put all his experience much more towards the stern in both boats there. So we've got experience. There's quite a few ISIS athletes, and they're all pretty much rowing up in the stroke and 7 seat. Interesting.
Yeah, they are. That's a great shout, actually, Phelan. That we should see a great rhythm coming down from those guys in stroke and 7. And of course, it's going to be key that the 6-man in both crews, Harry Ahmed, the Aussie, in wedge on Surrey, and Tom Sharrock in Beetle on Middlesex, are going to back up that stern pair combination. Do you think I was a bit nasty to Johnny Davison about his biography there? I hope you do well, Johnny. I hope you do well. Rowing at 4 in the Beetle crew, which is the crew on Middlesex. So I think the race looks to be on time. We're still down around about Harrods or Hammersmith Bridge there, looking at Fulham Football Club. The crews are above us. You know the form by now if you've seen the women's race. They're warming up above, or below Putney Bridge, I should say.
You can still see though, great conditions on the course. Nice flat water, should be a good race again. I have to say, actually, just looking out at the course at the moment, I do think though there's a little bit more wind in there. So there might be just a little bit more bobbly.
Yeah, can't see it too much on the trees. The leaves are blowing as opposed to the branches, I have to say.
Yeah, what is going to be a little bit different now is, you know, the tide is coming in more. You can see that the tide's going to be higher, which actually does impact on the feel of the water, because now, because the tide is up, it's going to be bouncing, you know, off the walls of the Thames. So there will be a little bit more undercurrent, a little bit more bobbly underneath whilst it looks flat on top. So there might be a few little bit more challenges for the men, which maybe the women didn't have before.
Yeah, and maybe for the aligner and the starter, the umpire Tony Reynolds, it's going to be difficult to get those crews aligned. They're below Putney Bridge at the moment, so the umpires has kind of turned them round. Do you think they've been down already and he's told them to go back down?
No, they look at the moment. I think what will generally happen is that you finish your warm-up loop, and you end up just being just below Putney Bridge. And then sometimes if things aren't quite ready, or someone needs to do a quick adjustment, there'll be just another sort of like quick loop around. But we're definitely ready for race warm up. I see both crews are in kit ready, so I'm sure now it's just going to be a few minutes. It's always just those last little bit of checks, last little bit of drink of water. Go and check, make sure your gate's all nice and tight. And then I think you're just ready to blast out the doors.
We're looking at the back of Andrew Wakefield, the Kiwi, there, and they are rowing in white. And both crews are going to spin now and go through the road bridge. So the crew in white we're going to call Wedge. It's easy to remember, W and Wedge. And the crew in blue is Beetle, and Beetle are going to be on the Middlesex side. Beetle are the crew with the president, Taskor Müller, in the 7th seat, and the guys are turning round.
This is where you already want to start if you're Lacotte's. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but this is where you already want to start playing games. So, in a way, actually, sometimes how you position yourself now as you approach to the start can sort of like impact, just like your positioning a little bit. If you're really clever and you start turning right in the middle of the course, you can drift under Putney Bridge, right below sort of like the lights, and you're already pushing over the other crew a little bit further over to Surrey than maybe they want. I've done that in the past.
Sounds like you've been there, Phelan.
I have been told off for doing that. It looks like actually in both these cases, Tobias and Lewis are sort of like they're much better in terms of their positioning. Neither of them are getting in the way. I think probably the slight delay at the moment, as you talked about, is I just heard there's a little bit of wake on the course, which they're just letting doing it.
Yeah, the race is probably going to get underway in, I guess, 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the dark blue guys from the Beetle crew on Middlesex going straight down the middle of the river, and the umpire will have told the Wedge crew in white.
There you can see there, Beetle Lewis. He's done a good job there with his positioning. You can tell that he's done the ISIS boat. Previously he's got the experience. He's nicely slotted in there.
That's Lewis Corrigan, the Cox of the crew on the right of your picture. And that is the Cox, Tobias Barnard, the former Westminster schoolboy, with his hand up there. It's a bit early for the start, isn't it? They kind of got to drift down.
You drift down very quickly, though. This is the worst bit. This is the nervy bit. Because you're not actually attaching to a pontoon. Your boats are just drifting. You also want to make sure that when you're aligned, you're not just giving away anything. And actually as well, you want to leave it to the last moment for all the crews to go and square their blades, because otherwise you want to you're killing momentum on the hull. So you almost want to just like keep drifting, just have a small amount of momentum.
There's an liner there making sure that both bows are level, but bow pair of Beetle on the right of your picture just tapping the boat up.
This is going to be a quick start now. I think they're nearly ready. As soon as those hands drop, they're going.
It's Tobias Barnard from Wedge on the left of your picture. His stroke, Jean-Philippe Dufour looking at him. And Tony Reynolds just waiting for hands to go down at the moment. Oh, they're not level. That's Wedge bow pair. Just a little touch up. You can see the crew on the left of your picture in white. That's the crew of wedge. So the umpire kind of thinks the crews are aligned, or the aligner thinks the crews are aligned. The Coxes are being a bit cagey, Phelan.
Yeah, it's quite sort of like nervy, this bit. It's really hard for Coxes when you're not stationary and you're drifting and the hole's moving around.
Here we go. Good clean first stroke from both crews. So they're winding through their paces, going up to above 40.
I think Beetle have gone out very good first few strokes there.
So that's the crew on Middlesex on the right of your picture. They seem to have a lead, and Beetle is being warned by Tony Reynolds. We saw this in the women's boat race, but he's got the flag. You can see his white flag out in front of the camera, and he's saying, Beetle, you should be on the other side of the picture. I can tell you now, looking out the window, that Beetle, the crew on the far side, have just under a canvas lead. You can see the shot there. There it is. They're passing right in front of us.
Great start, both crews. That's what you want. Nice and punchy. Also getting the umpire to do a little bit of work early on.
Do you think it matters that one crew's got a bit of a canvas? Do you think you can tell, or are the rowers looking out, or do you know as a Cox?
I don't think the canvas matters too much at this point. You know, I think it's similar to the women's, right? We're at the moment a high tempo start. We're just coming out. You can see here now, just like the end of the boys on the left hand side of the screen. You're about 500 meters in there, and this is the point now you're transitioning from anaerobic to aerobic, and you're coming off that high tempo, and now you're just thinking about settling into that fast race pace rhythm. Again, just really critical a moment. Beetle being on the right hand side have that early advantage of Middlesex. That's worth a little bit of distance. It's worth about like a third of a length. So will be interesting now to see how they can use that, whether they can take an advantage. Because if Wedge are level coming out of the Middlesex bend, then they're in really good shape to go and attack Surrey.
Decently synced up stroke side there on the dark blues of Beetle, down at their race pace of 34, Wedge up at 35. Perhaps they might come down a little bit from that 35. The stroke side led by Alex Bebb, looking pretty cool in that boat, but they will want more of a margin on their opponents in white, just out of picture, the crew Wedge, because that Middlesex bend, you kind of reckon you want to be up a bit, but Wedge are going to be delighted at this stage of the race, surely, Phelan.
Yeah, Wedge will be very happy. They're on the outside of the bend, and it looks like they're maybe just a fraction up or level. That's a great position to be in off the back of it. And you can see here also, you know, Beetle there, you know, obviously plenty of experience from steering, from ISIS, etc. You know, already sort of like pushing hard just to take as much advantage as possible.
This is where the rivalry from the Coxes comes in. You want your crew to be in the fastest water. You want to push it, and the umpires sort of going, look, I know, mate, you just move over.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a strategy, particularly around the Middlesex, is that you don't want to start steering too soon. In an ideal scenario, you just keep almost like heading.
Wedge coming close, and here's a clash, So this is aggressive steering. Is that Tobias Barnard, the former Westminster schoolboy, and or is it Beetle that's moved over to him?
I actually think Tobias has been pretty clean here, and I think it's probably a little bit more just coming from Beetle here, like putting the pressure on.
You've got to keep your head in the boat, haven't you? Look at that big crab from Beetle. They've lost out there. Wow, what's going to happen here? Tony Reynolds is just saying,
there's a lot of work
this is a clash. Is he going to stop the race, do you think?
No, I don't think so.
Is he going to disqualify a crew? That is so exciting, seeing those clashing blades. I know you're not supposed to do it. Wedge, he's telling to move. Wedge, that's the crew on the left of your picture, boxed by Tobias Bernard. So, I tell you what, Beetle have got a lot of work to do. They've lost about half a length in that clash.
You see, Sean won't like that. You want to have like a little bit of a clear rate. I know it's always quite good to go and have a little bit of that, but you do want to keep it clean. You want to let the athletes do the work.
He's shouted to Wedge, the crew we're looking at now on screen, stroked by Jean-Philippe Dufour, coxed by Tobias Bernard. James forward there, the man behind the stroke, closest to you, just anchoring the boat well from the 7th seat. The 6th man, Harry Arnaud, really digging in, and Beetle still hanging on. They've lost that half-length margin, but they're still in this race, aren't they?
Well, it's a great race, this. Great race here. Still got very close overlap. I don't think it's clear which way it's going to go at the moment. It's really finely balanced. You know, Tobias there really pushing hard on the steering a little bit. I can hear Wedge getting warned that they do need to go and steer around that Surrey bend.
Beetle up at 35.5, Wedge down at 34.5. Beetle pushing now as we come up to Harrods. They're out of the best stream, I'd say. They really, he said, Wedge, move over, take the bend, and at the moment they're not. And the Cox of Beetle, Louis Corrigan, is really trying to get his blades as close as he can to Wedge, but they're just not following instructions, are they?
Yeah, no, so I think Tobias in the Wedge on the left-hand side, you know, he's really leaving his steering late to take the bend, and the idea being that you go and force round.
There you can see the margin as it comes past our camera on Fulham Reach Boat Club. What do you say that is? About a third of a length?
I think that's about a third to a half a length there.
I'd say that's a great row by Beetle after that shipwreck. They've really held on. The trouble is they've got to do it. You can see the graphic on the bottom right there, all the way around the outside of that Surrey bend. This has got to be a masterful performance from them after Hammersmith Bridge, just to hang on to the crew in white, the Wedge crew, on that Surrey station. It's their advantage at the moment, but they're still hanging in there, Beetle, in dark blue. Right under the second lamp post on Hammersmith Bridge, feeling.
Beetle have done that very well, just coming around the Hammersmith there. I think Louis putting himself in a very good place there for his crew, trying to hold that contact. Now this is the critical moment. We've just come through Hammersmith. We've still got half the Surrey bend to go. Wedge on the left-hand side have that slight advantage. It's now whether they can just take full advantage and break the connection. I don't think they're going to do that at the moment. I think actually Beetle in the blue here are really holding on the pressure.
I think you're right.
Steering.
I fancy Beetle, if they can hang on to this bend, I fancy Beetle to take it on their Middlesex bend, actually, as it unwinds. But we're on the apex of that Surrey bend at the moment. And he's warning Beetle. Is he warning Beetle? I thought he should have been warning Wedge. Wedge has just moved over. That's Tobias Bernard just moved over, giving Beetle a little bit of room. Let's not have another clash, boys.
Definitely the flag's getting a lot
James
more work.
Forward there, Jean-Philippe Dufour in the stroke seat. James Forward with the cap on. His 6th man behind him, Harry Arnaud. Down the boat, James Doran, Anthony Kenny in the 4th seat, Nick Elkington, Andy Bridger, and the Kiwi Andrew Wakefield up in the bows. And they're still there, Beetle in dark blue, aren't they? They're still there. What a great job Alex Bebb is doing. And Tas von Müller, we're looking at the bowman there, William Loosley, Colson Andrews down the boat at 2, Alfred Origin in 3, Johnny Davidson at 4, Jan Ola Ernst, the German, at 5, Tom Sharrock at 6. And then the president, he's hanging on for dear life, Tas von Müller, the man who learnt to row on the Baldinese in Essen, that rough lake in Essen. Alex Bebb in the stroke seat, doing a beautiful job. They're maybe even moving back, feeling.
Yeah, this is a great race.
I fancy them to win this.
This is a great race. This is what Trial Ace is about, you know. We talked about how well can you go and match up Ace. Sean's obviously done a great job here. And we've got a great race on.
Look at the 3-man in the Beetle crew. Alfred Origin, the British undergraduates. Just saw his face in the middle of the screen there.
Now this is going to be interesting now. We've just coming up. We're just going along the Chiswick, the island on the course now. We're just over halfway.
And these crews are going down a straight, so that there's no one crew with an advantage. No, a little bit more for Surrey to unwind.
We've still got a little bit of the Surrey bend left. But what's going to be interesting now is to just work out how much effort Beetle's gone and put in to go and like hold level round the outside of that Surrey bend.
Yeah, the 7-man in, well, we're looking at James Forward, the 7-man in the Wedge crew on the Surrey, and
and his stroke, Jean-Philippe Dufour. Set a great rhythm, nice finish, back end of the stroke. He's got his shoulder coming really back well, I think. But I think you called it, Phelan. How much effort have Bebb and Von Müller and Sharrock in the stern of that Beetle crew put in early in the race? But at the moment...
I'm going to call it. I think this is going to be Beetles.
Yeah.
I think now we're coming towards the end of it. I just think like that their stroke rhythm's just a little bit flatter, a little bit more horizontal. I think there's a bit more punch in their blade work. It just looks that little bit crisper. I think as well, being in that boat, I will be absolutely pumped. I've got an almost finished like the Surrey Bend, and I'll be like going, I will be saying, boys, we've held these guys around the outside of the bend. They have not capitalised on their Surrey Bend. We've got Middlesex coming up shortly. We can take this.
Louis Corrigan's going really close, isn't he? The Cox of Beetle on that right-hand side. He's being warned. He's gone really close. He's trying to push over, but he'll feel that's just desserts after what Tobias Berner did to him early in the race. And he's called again. Look at Beetle steering. They're clashing again. They're clashing again. He's telling Wedge to move over. He's telling Beetle to move over.
I think this is a little bit both sides here, just half and half. They just need to keep it clean at this point.
Wow, look at those bows. What is there in that race? There's about a third, canvas?
Yeah, maybe a bit of a third of a length.
So they've got the bend now. They've got the Middlesex bend, the crew in the dark blue. Great row from the crew in the dark blue as we go past Chiswick Steps there. There's the blades.
Look at that. Great work both. So tight. There's no space in that.
Oh, we're loving that. Look at the clashing. Look at the clashing. The two-man, or the bowman, Andrew Wakefield from New Zealand, is having to lose his blade. They just moved apart there, Phelan.
Yeah, I think now obviously Tobias realising a little bit of the situation there in the white boat of Wedge and really trying to just like put a bit more pressure on. But I do think now Beetle, this will be. I might be eating my microphone this, and I'll be totally wrong.
No,
but I would back Beetle on this now.
I back Beetle. They've been a high rating, 35 and a half to Wedge's 34. I do think they're just edging away. Up in the bows, that's William Loosley, Colson Andrews, the Yank in the 2C, Alfred Orgin from Britain in the 3C, Johnny Davison putting in a 4. You can see his blade really biting there. Jan Ola Ernst, the big 5-man in Beetle on the right of your picture. Tom Sharrock. He's lost his blade. He's lost it. Oh, look at that. And they're bashing the boat in exasperation. That's the 3-man, Nick Elkington. Did you see him smack the blade in exasperation there? What is the umpire going to do about this?
Do you know, I think in that situation, I was actually just before that, I was actually slightly worried for Beetle before that incident happened, because when it comes to like clashing, if you're, it's much from perspective is if your stroke man is the one who's being hit all the time and clashing, it's much more disruptive than if your bowman's doing it. But in that situation there, obviously the stroke of Beetle really dug in well there during the clashing, and unfortunately there in that situation Wedge just came out the wrong side of it. Really unfortunate.
These guys are looking, they want to be in the blue boat for the boat race, and so the frustration you could see punching the blade from Elkington. So frustrated that his bowman Andrew Wakefield had lost his blade, but he lost it as a result of a clash. Do you think the umpire will disqualify one of these crews at the finish? Do you think?
I honestly think that was a little bit of 50-50. I don't think, you know, there were both crews I think were being a little bit worn. I think maybe, you know, we'd seen it just a bit before. Wedge were pretty aggressive on the steering, and I think, you know, they didn't need to be quite so like pushy on it, and I think unfortunately they paid a little bit of a price for that.
Well, he pays your money, he takes your choice. If you're going to take a chance with the clashes, the first clash, the first big clash we saw, it was the crew of Beetle that caught that shipwreck, that stroke side, and Wedge emerged with a margin. But the real telling shipwreck was when Andrew Wakefield lost his blade, the bowman of the crew trailing now, and basically slowed down, almost completely stopped his boat. Had to stop to slow down to get the blade out.
It's a killer, that. It's killed the momentum a little bit.
Killed the excitement of the race as well, hasn't it?
It was a great race, but you know, I think you'll learn a lot from that. I think obviously you always have clashes over the years, and it's interesting. You know, you've probably got an experienced stroke man who's obviously done ISIS in the past, who will have probably experienced a lot of the clashing, who perhaps, you know, against the bows and the other who don't have that same experience of clashing, not quite, you know, used to what happens in those. I always used to go and say, if we're doing clashing, I'd warn the crew and I'd be like, grip hard, square early.
Yeah.
And then normally you come out better than if you're someone who's like feathering later.
There's Alex Baird with his sunglasses on his head, the Canadian stroke of the leading crew in dark blue Beetle, Tas von Müller, the president. Well, he's going to be loving the fact he's leading this race. I think Wedge have moved back a little bit on Beetle in this last part of the race. They were the higher rated crew, just a length of clear water. But it was the defining moment of that race.
Well done, I have to say, to Alex through that clashing. It's really hard. As a stroke guy, you're trying to set the rhythm, you're trying to set the tempo, and at the same time, your blade is actually being, you know, hit. You can't actually get your entry in. But he managed to like hold on through the clashing. He managed to still set the tempo, dictate the rhythm to the boat, and they've come out from that one.
So the dark blue crew of Beetle are leading this race. They have done really since the crossover Chiswick Steps, but the real margin they took was when Andrew Wakefield, the bowman of the trailing crew Wedge in white, lost his blade, went parallel to the boat. You saw the frustration in his crew. They're winding up for the finish now, but it's all going to be too late.
What's interesting though as well, since that clash, obviously the crab, the distance hasn't changed that much between Barnes and Chiswick. I think, you know, what we're seeing here is two very equally well-paced crews.
A win for Beetle, just coming up to the line. Loosley, Andrews, Alpin, Davison, Ernst, Sharrock, von Müller. You can hear what it means to them. Bebb in the stroke seat, Cox by Louis Corrigan.
You can see the celebrations a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think the boys there being a little bit more vocal than the ladies earlier today, but you can see how much that means to them. The fact that, you know, they're celebrating that. That's like a great win for them. They're really, really happy with that, and you know, it just proves the point. This isn't just about like a training session.
Yeah.
This is like a full-on race. There's something like serious at stake there, and you can see that Beetle are very happy at that.
So there's no disqualifications, I think we're hearing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. I would have thought if he was going to disqualify, I thought Wedge early on in the race came over into Beetle's water, and then there was that Beetle clash. I kind of thought,
yeah,
you know, that was a bit of Wedge's fault, but like you said, the really key clash was a bit 50-50 in water.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to be too critical, and certainly I've made many mistakes in the past, but you know, in those situations, Wedge just need to be just a little bit like smoother and slightly less aggressive on the steering. You've got to try and let the rowers do the work. I know I probably didn't do it myself at the time, but you know, that's something you learn with a little bit of experience, and I think, you know, Louis just having that little bit more experience of previously, I think that just showed there at times. You know, he's just a little bit smoother with his steering around the bends. But you know, great racing.
That contrast between, you know, the winners just tapping the boat round nicely, turning ready to row back upstream, the losers just sat there with their heads a bit down.
Yeah, that's the adrenaline kicking in.
It's an iconic image in sport, isn't it?
But I think, you know, Sean will be very happy with that. Very competitive racing, you know. Oh, here we go. Here's Is it off the start? You know, I think there you can see Beetle. They got out well there. They had a very good, strong start.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many highlights in this race to choose from.
I think both crews were really punchy, really dynamic early on.
Yeah,
and I think
they look great there, don't they? Nice and easy, fluid.
What I thought both crews did very well was actually attacking the opposition's bends. So when Beetle had the advantage on middle sets, Wedge attacked hard. Then when Wedge had the advantage on Surrey, you know, Beetle did a great job there.
Look at that coming together there. Whoa, those blades are so close. You just absolutely got to hang on to your blade. You kind of got half an eye. Look, he's looking, the three-man of Beetle, Alfred Elgin, he's looking across, he's aware of it. It's not on his side of the boat, but it's going to be that big clash. Wedge just hanging in there. The decisive clash is just about to happen. I think that's round Chiswick Bend, isn't it? That's the end of Chiswick.
But you know, this is the moment here. This is just after Hammersmith Bridge. I mean, look at that. That's really aggressive steering. That's just a little bit too heavy on it. Needs to be smoother.
He had the rudder quite heavy on there, didn't he?
Yeah. But you see, look, just before, and that just kills it. You jack the rudder on like that, and you're just killing like a little bit of the whole speed and the rhythm.
So this round, is this round Chiswick 8? Is this?
No, this is just before Chiswick 8 now.
Yeah.
But I thought both crews were doing really well here. Beetle were in like a nice rhythm. It was pretty horizontal.
So there is big clash coming up.
There's a lot of clashing. You can just see here, if you look at Alex in the stroke seat, the Beetle, you know, what a great job he's doing there. He's constantly getting hit by, you know, Wedge's bow seat or 3 seat, but he's just staying in the rhythm. You know, he's still just focusing on it. Great work from him.
Top man. And we're waiting for that clash. We missed the key clash there, didn't we? That where the blade went round and there was a smashing on the boat. Never mind, we all saw it in the race, didn't we? It was a highlight.
You can always watch the highlights back on YouTube.
Yeah.
I thought that though was exceptionally good race for this kind of I think that's what you want. You want a good blowout. You want plenty of intensity, aggression in it. I think, you know, there's definitely a lot there that both the Cotses can actually learn. The athletes will have learned a lot around you know, just like the clashing. And I think certainly, you know, Sean walking away from that will learn a lot about his crews, also the character of the people there.
Yeah, it was definitely a more aggressive Cox from the men's trial-8s than the women's trial-8s, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely a level of aggression there. Well, I think we can go and see the clash now.
Yeah, so we're looking at the bow of Andrew Wakefield. He's got his head in the boat at the moment, the Kiwi.
See, what's happening here now is that the Beetle, they're holding off steering around their Middlesex bend. You can see Wedge now, they want to start turning in. They want to start.
So he's hitting Stroke's blade.
Yeah.
Oh, he's just lost
there
it there at the finish.
Just on that release.
Look at the reaction of Nick Elkington there. So frustration. Look at him. His hands there. He's trying to bash the boat, trying to get it out.
It is. Honestly, though, like, it's so hard to get out.
Yeah.
You get like a crab like that, the blade running parallel with the boat. You've still got like whole speed on it. Just actually extracting it is so hard to do.
And the guys in the stern, you know, they've just got to keep going. You know. Whoa. There he is. What a shame for Andrew Wakefield.
I think at that point, though, you know, one of the things is, you never like to go and see the clashing, but I don't think ultimately that clash and crab impacted on the end result.
Yeah.
I think the end result would have been a win for Beetle. I think just the nature of the win might have been slightly different.
I think you're spot on there with that call. I think, you know, we both called it. So Beetle were hanging on round Surrey, had the advantage at that Surrey bend, and then Middlesex, they had the bend in their favour, and they were always favourites the way they were rowing around that bend.
Yeah.
So that is today's racing concluded, but we have got a whole nother day. Yes, another day. It's Cambridge's turn, the light blues tomorrow. Let's have a look at what lies ahead of us for tomorrow's racing. So there are the two crews, Rapinoe and Mead. And
If you know those, they are women's football players.
Of course, the American.
The American, and obviously Beth Mead.
That's quite a cool shout, isn't
Lioness's legend.
Yeah.
Great names. So no, it'll be again like a great day of racing.
And there are the men's crews. Luca Ferraro up in the stroke seat. Well, that's interesting, on bow side stroking.
I tell you, again, when we talk about the Coxes and the aggression, this is going to be an interesting one. You know, Ollie, Mr. President, against Jasper, obviously boat race experience from last year. You know,
that is going to be a, you know, because Jasper was really aggressive in his steering last year, but Ollie Boyne is very impressive as the president of Cambridge, actually. And I think that's going to be the highlight for me of the whole boat race series, the duel between those two Coxes. And as we watch the launches wend their way back to Hammersmith, we're going to take a look at upcoming fixtures.
All these fixtures will again be streamed live on YouTube, on Boat Race channel.
Exciting,
and you
isn't it?
You can see here, great set of fixtures again. Obviously the highlight, you know, up there, Dutch national team, that's going to be a great fixture. But also as well, just a few of the other ones. IC, great club, just down the towpath actually. And then, you know, UL, really great club, plenty of heritage there.
Yeah, with a new coach, Ben Smithy, and some more fixtures there. We've got the Oxford women taking on the women of Oxford Brooks. That programme is really accelerated so much now, the women's programme at Brooks. CUBC women against Leander. And
interesting this year that the official fixture for Oxford is against Leander and not Brooks.
I know. Yeah,
maybe Sean doesn't want to.
Yeah. Well,
you know.
That Brooks, they'd be out for them. I just automatically thought they would be racing Brooks, but no, they're racing Leander one.
Saying that this year, and this is an early call, I think Leander will be the boat domestically. I think they're going to win 8's Head, and I think they'll be the most powerful test that, you know, Oxford are going to go up against.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've had such an exciting day. We saw that great first race with the women, and clear margin, and then there was all the excitement and aggression in the men's race.
Really quite contrasting races in some ways.
Yeah, very much
you know,
so.
like one really quite clean, the other one quite like a feisty affair. I think the great thing is, though, was today, and you can never predict it this year, but conditions were great for both races. I think ultimately the rowing did a lot of talking, and you didn't have to talk about external factors of wind, etc. I think both Andy and Sean, the head coaches, will have learnt a lot about their crews. I have to say, I was really, really impressed with the Oxford women, particularly like the winning boat. Really strong, great rhythm there. And then with the men, I just thought, you know, good argy-bargy. Nice one.
So you heard from Phelan Hill. We're going to say our goodbyes now. So from me, Martin Cross, thank you for being with us for this last couple of hours. It's goodbye from me.
Yeah, and it's also goodbye from me, and hopefully you as well. You'll be tuning in tomorrow for tomorrow's fixtures against Cambridge. which will all be broadcast live and from 1 p.m. and that will be, you'll have a great new commentary team, Grace, who obviously Olympic champion and also former boat race winner, and also Camilla, who is an absolute legend on the world rowing commentating scene. So you've got a great team with you tomorrow too.
Bye now.
Bye.